Welcome to episode, oh my God, I think it's 19.
I think.
It could be 20. I think this is episode 20. It wraps up The Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey,
17.
episode 20. We've gone through the whole album, and we are now venturing into the hidden bonus track territory. And I was just saying, I was going to say to Byron, but I said I'll wait until we start. I don't know if you're the same as I. Everybody's a little different the way they absorb music and process it. But I have this nasty brain worm of the last song I heard. Sometimes I can't get it out of my head. And they're just little like 4-bar passages that will just play over and over and over.
For sure.
And it's almost like a disease. You know, you feel like, please get out of my head. Luckily, I managed to erase some of, because I was just saying the European Cream was going over my head. Over my head. Because we listened to it and I was editing the show, and not that I edit very long. But I just was once again, frustrated by I can't get shit out of my head. And it's one particular little 4-bar thing that'll just cycle. Is this the same for you, or you just...
Oh, I live with it on a daily basis, doing music, working on stuff. I live with it. I can't get to sleep. That's one of the reasons why sometimes I can't get to sleep, because the song I'm presently working on is something that I just can't get out of my head. So there's always parts. And then, so I find it interesting. I just finished off a song this week, and so I moved on to another song. And the transition, I love being immersed in my music, or having the song that you're presently working on just drifting in and out of my head. I love that feeling. I love it because I can change things if I want, because I'm usually presently working on stuff. But finishing off a song is kind of a disappointment, because I always love being in the middle of my song. I love sort of seeing it to the end. I love sort of the road that I go on, and it's always kind of a slight disappointment to finish off a song and start a new one. But I started a new one the last couple of days. I have sort of a blank slate lyrically in my head, but there is a guitar lick that I did, and it's prescient to the song proper, and I can't remember doing it. It's a song that's about 10 years old. I can't remember doing it, but it's got quite a cool lick in it that I use, and it's a lick that I have not been able to get out of my head for the last 2 days. Like, it's just killing me. I hear it in the shower. I hear it everywhere. And then when I was hearing the song, I get all of a sudden this guitar solo comes out. I thought it was you. Or it was either Brian or you, or it was a combination of the two of you, because there's two different guitars on it. But the guitar solo was just ridiculously good. And I go through the same thing I've been going through lately. I'm going, why is this sort of buried in all this other stuff? Why is this buried in my hard drive? So, so that's the song I'm working on. But right now I have this guitar lick that I just happened upon, and I can't get it.
So it's the guitar lick from a solo, or it's the lick you played in another part in the song?
It's a part it's something I had to start a song with. I had a lick. They went to 11, and it was in the saddest key of all, D minor. And no, it was just one of those sort of 70s, like I love sort of the sweet, or all that sort of stuff, that early 70s.
Yeah, the sucky
stuff.
harmony. My favorite song of all time, Brandy, Looking Glass.
Right.
Saccharine AM stuff.
Yeah, my guitar, I can hear it. I can hear I'm playing something off the A, and I'm hearing something where I'm, what's it when you sort of hit off a string and...
pull off? Hammer?
Yeah, I can hear a couple pull-offs or hammer-offs, and so I can hear that. So it sounds good, but that was probably done in a space of 3 minutes of trying to come up with something, and I just... In a 2-second little space. It was probably a happy accident, but I happened upon this, and I just...
Then you try to recreate it and butcher it completely.
can't play it the same like I did that one point, but I hear it and then I just sort of keep it and then I just sort of place it and it just becomes this lick and I think, wow. But yeah, there was no thought behind it other than just it was an accident.
See, I think that's the difference as well between clever and stupid.
There is a thin line.
But someone who's primarily a songwriter as opposed to, and again, I'm no player, but I think I'm more of a player than I am a songwriter, where I would come up with a little lick and see where it applies to a song or something, where you will take that same little lick and turn it into the opening riff of the song and then go whoo from there. That's the neat thing, is that spark of creativity.
Yeah, I wish I was a better guitar player. There are a lot of things in my head, but there's a lot of things in my head that I sort of can't get out as my guitar. So I just sort of go by happy accidents. I know enough that I can just sort of play for 3 minutes and something will come out of me, and it's usually an accident, but something appealing to me once I listen back to it.
And that is the entirety of the popular music situation today, is I think they're happy accidents, because it seems like it's a popularity contest and it's not hard these days. I just downloaded Logic 10.5 and if you can't come up with songs on your own with that, you're in trouble. So I'm saying that the playing field is wide open. It still comes down to that creativity.
Right.
When is a good part a good part? When are a couple of instruments sounding good together?
Absolutely, it's that gut feeling, right? But I find sort of playing by happy accident. So people sometimes ask me, and you've seen many artists been asked, like, what are your influences? And I always say that there's some specific ones I can name that I can remember, like the Beatles and the soundtrack to the movies of the 60s that were played in my basement, that my father played when I was growing up, all that stuff. But interestingly enough, that once you sort of do music and stuff like that, you find that there are some subliminal influences. It's like when you dream sometimes, and there's some people that appear in your dreams, and you're like, how did that person get in my dream? Like, I'm not even thinking of them. Or why is this in my dream? It's something that I don't think of, but it just seems to be out in the... It seems to be something about something that made me dream it and stuff like that. So, yeah, so there are a lot of subliminal influences that sort of come out, maybe in a happy accident of playing guitar. But yeah, you find yourself not always following. You just go to. You don't always follow what you think is right. Sometimes just things just start coming out. It's best when you're not thinking, right?
Well, I was going to ask, just out of
like when you play a guitar solo, do you know what you're playing ahead of time? Or are you just sort of in the middle of something?
I think I'm a little different in that I'm not that accomplished a solo player. So I usually try to work something out, or I'm going to go to the same tired cliches time and time again. And the older I get, the less I play, the less I'm good at just freeform stuff, you know? So... Like you, I would think I would take a couple of takes at something to play through a few motifs and hopefully get something that is a little different than you normally do, and you go, okay, try to expand on that a bit. So I'm not a great virtuoso soloist, and I never liked to jam a whole lot because they would go, play a solo, and you're going, I'm not a great soloist.
Are you thinking while you're doing it, or are you just sort of lost in the music and you're just sort of feeling it wherever you're going in your head?
Well, like most of us, I think.
Or you're sweating bricks.
If you're jamming a 1-4-5, I'm okay and I can feel it. But if we're, jamming on a Steely Dan track, I'm worried more about what chords are we going to next?
Okay, but if
can I just play through the chords?
You're right though. If it is a 1-4-5, are you just sort of going? And then at one point I'm going to move up the neck. And
because we all play in boxes right up and down the neck, and we all learn our little spaces where I know the 1-4-5 here and where I can end up on things. So I say I'm not a studied guitar player. I've always aspired to be that Beatles producer guy. That's what I think. Guys like us want to do from our vintages. But I'm not a great writer. I was never a great singer. So it kind of halts you a bit.
Do you think growing older, you're a different guitar player? And by that, I mean when you're younger, you want to show off your chops or your speed
I
or
never felt that way.
your stuff.
No.
But sort of like when you get older, so you sort of become more subtle in your approaches. I would guess.
I would think everybody settles down and realizes what's good. You know, what's really tasteful. I guess in your own mind, right?
Can you identify sort of the difference? So I'm playing Bite Down Hard. Like we heard like a lot of your guitar work and stuff like that, and I noticed some of your reactions were much like mine about my playing, but there was some embarrassment, but there was also some points where you were sort of proud of what you were hearing and stuff like that. Yeah. How different of a guitar player are you now than you would have been 30 years ago playing on that first album that we did?
Well, assuming that I haven't lost any mental capacity because of my dementia or unstable abilities. When you just keep layering year on year, even if you just learn incrementally every year, you're still layering that on top of stuff you've known before. So when I hear my stuff, always, even to this day, I think that I'm pressuring myself to fill every void with a note, and not that I'm a fast guitar player, but I mean, I'm at least, I have a hard time letting things sit, play a note and let it sit, or play a small phrase and let that sit for a second before you move on. I don't know why. When I'm playing, I just feel this need to just keep moving and adding notes.
No, and I totally get it, because I'm very much the same with my music. We're having 85 million things going on at the same time. And I think the thing that you would learn when you, 30 years later, is, as I say, it's the space between the notes that are the most important thing. And it's using silence, actually. And you don't have to... one of the things I definitely think I've learned over even the past 10 years is I spend too much time listening to small sections of songs and stuff like that. And really there is a rhythm to a song, and it takes a couple of minutes to really listen to something, to listen to how it builds and stuff like that. You don't have to have a note in between all the 8 notes and stuff like that. Having things breathe is really important, and it's such a... it's nothing that can be identified in 10 seconds, in a 10-second section, whether things work, because what works in a 10-second section, what precedes it or what's behind it, the context of that section is so important. So what sounds good in 15 seconds might not sound good in the whole thing. And I think I'm still learning that to this day about... and maybe I get lazy and I'm only working on... I don't want to spend the time listening to the song as a whole and just listening to it breathe and stuff like that.
And therein, for me, is the eternal crux of the creative process. You can never go back and hear it for the first time again with virgin ears and say, that sounds so good, so well put, so well thought out, because you're micromanaging everything. And like I said, when we started this whole thing, it just starts to loop in my head, and it doesn't sound original anymore. It sounds contrived. And like when I would write those drum tracks forever, but that was one of my biggest things in the studio, that I got so used. The Roland R8 and I were best friends for about 10 years. I got so proficient on it, and I'm certainly not a drummer, but I could put together tracks really quickly for people.
You were like a savant on that.
Not really.
No. You were like a savant. Like he always, and it was almost like he had no money in the game about doing that. But that's why you were so good. Because if you ask him about guitar playing, you're like, I'm the shittiest guitar player. You go through all that shit. But the drums, you never said that about yourself. You just kind of went and did it, and it was.
Well, I was the coach. It played.
Yeah, it was kind of like a laugh though. But I think that's what was so good. Like, it was like you had no money in the game. That's why I love doing digital artwork, because it's like I had no money in the game.
Yeah, you're saying, I'm not professing to be the best.
Yeah.
So whatever I do, to hell with everybody.
And your psyche was, and you ended up being like just this savant as far as I was concerned. I'd ask you anything on drum, and you just came up with stuff. Like, you just do it, and you just like, tap away.
Nobody creates in a vacuum. So I would just pull back to something I had heard in the past and go, how do they do that?
Yeah.
Well, it would probably be the brush card, and with the world drum, and You know what? It was just that I know that I really liked the R8, and that was my thing for a long time.
But you weren't beating yourself up or anything like that,
No.
saying I was the shittiest.
No, because you could quantize it, but also put the humanized quantize.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the parts are great, and it had that cross sampling the harder you hit it, so you could really get stuff sounding pretty good.
You work quick, I remember. You used to do it really quick, and you used to put all these parts together. I used to watch you. It would take.
What's funny is for a long time, I'm sure other people that worked with it or other pieces of software in popular music for about 15 years, you could hear certain patches from the R8 used in songs, not the entire drum kits, but just like the tambourine sound or something, and you knew it instantly when you heard it. Or like the vibraphone, like clang. Like
you could load in sounds on that already.
Mm-hmm. I think it had two card slots.
But it had a specific sound to it. The R8, like the snares were specific.
Well, they gave you, I think, like 6 or 7 different snares, and then you could load. There was 16 pads on it, right, 4x4, and you could load in. You know, I'd always have my kick drums in the bottom 2 left because I'm playing it like a drum kit. While you're playing along. What I was getting at was the problem with hearing things over and over and over, and they become no longer original. So when I would be writing drum fills, I would hear like 12 times because I wanted to get it right. And now all of a sudden, every time I hear it in the song, I go, oh my God, that's horrible, because it's so contrived and pre-planned, but to the listener, hopefully, it doesn't sound that way. There is the crux of creative thing. You start to lose that objectivity of, is it good? Is it not? Am I crazy? If you say the word funny enough, it doesn't sound real. You shouldn't be able to use it.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a great advertisement for having somebody to sit in the booth and be the producer.
Or the beauty of having fantastic musicians that you don't have to sit and labor over, 4-bar by 4 with Bob Bangs or Derek. You could say, pretend you're in a circus. we're in D minor, and give me a few things like this, and then someone like Byron would take those tracks and cut them up, and then put them to better use, maybe. But that's the beauty of having those guys in. They can come up with stuff quickly, and it still feels fresh to you, the song.
Yeah, people you can musically trust that you.
Or if you have the absolute dictatorial powers, where you just go, nope, next. But I mean, who has that kind of luxury?
Yeah, I don't think I would ever do that, I don't think I would ever be that dogmatic about those type of things.
But it's not. You're not judging them on their talent. You're just judging them on what did you come up with for this particular thing. It's the happy accident.
Yeah, I just don't think it's within my psyche to be that absolutist to anybody. So for better or for worse. So yeah, absolutely. I just love I love the vibe of being with a bunch of guys, whether it was the Hooplers, those times we practiced at Maryville High School, and we just sort of enjoyed the time together and making some good music, and those times that we really hit the music really well, and it was there's nothing more enjoyable than being with a bunch of people.
Well, and once again, to bring back something you asked me earlier about what have I learned after all this stuff, earlier when I was working with John, our attitude in the 80s was everything has to be perfect. If you're not perfect, you're not allowed to play on this track. That was that kind of mindset that I was getting myself into. And after John and I had our split, and my friends were starting the Hooblers and said, you want to join? I said, nope, because it's not going to be perfect. Why would I want to join something that isn't perfect? And they went into this other room and started jamming. And it's like, you hear your friends playing, and it was pretty good, and I was tapping my toe and going, what, did I say no? I'm crazy. Like, I don't have to be perfect. Music isn't supposed to be perfect, I don't think. Because the more imperfect it became, the more I enjoyed it, the more you didn't worry about how good you were, I was. It was just, like I say, it was more the friends playing, and almost the loosier-goosier we got, the more I liked what we were doing, because it was 4 guys just having a good time and enjoying what we were doing. And it really got to a point where I thought, man, we can really do this, because we were selling a ton of albums in Europe, and I thought, if you listen to the album, there's all kinds of meter shifts, and we recorded it pretty well live. We won a Band Wars competition, but I'm just getting to the point where I'm saying, I now embrace my inability. And when I do that, to me, stuff starts sounding better.
Yeah, the premise that things should be perfect, I think, is probably not a good word to use.
Glad we figured it out when we're almost 60.
My definition of perfect would be 360 degrees. 360? What's the opposite? 180 degrees? Would that be? Is that right? Is that opposite?
Don't hit me with math. It's Sunday morning.
What is the the XYZ? Yes.
It's a vector.
Yes, I wouldn't be looking for perfection. Imagine what it must have been like for someone. It's wonder why they almost want to kill themselves. Like bands like the Eagles and stuff like that. Like ghetto, obviously just uber talented people, but you can just imagine the amount of time that was spent in the fight for perfection and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it can implode pretty easily. Like,
yeah, there's a thin line, right?
But you could see that they were some competing personalities, like who's better, because they're all so good. Yeah. Like for me, the epitome of perfect was, well, the Clash, London's Calling. Just the right amount of loosey-goosey creative ideas, don't give a fuck. It was perfect. You know, for my, again, what is perfect? I'm just saying that encapsulated, when I heard London's Calling, I thought, that's it. Like,
so when I was growing up, I wasn't as much of a Clash, although I think Rock the Casbah is just a ridiculously good dance song in a club. Like, it's just stupid. It reminds me of Love Shack, about the two greatest songs in a dance club. Oh man, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. I'll do it.
You've almost gone through first half.
Okay.
A lot on creativity.
I don't know what the hell I was talking about.
You know, it's funny because
what
this whole series and other things I'd like to talk about is truly about creativity. Where does it come from? Like, it's like the Big Bang. What came before that? You know, it's so interesting, creativity, and what inspires songwriters. You know, their side players. We all have to come up with stuff, and we're all aspiring to create beauty. And even though we sit here and we say, I'm the worst guitar player, it doesn't keep you from trying. And that is the creative spark.
Yeah, it's always wanting to. I think you every song I do, I get it as close as I can to the word perfect, but I recognize that I'll never get there. And but each song is a journey trying to get as close as I can to the tip of that. The what do they call it? The bliss point. Trying to get to the bliss point.
It would be interesting to ask artists, you know, that have created enough pieces of work to say, point to your own personal high water mark. You know, because each person would judge it in their own thing. But if I just put you on the spot and said, pick a track out of all your albums that you think you might be most proud of.
If you're asking me that, I've never thought of it, and I wouldn't know. Just makes me think of that sort of like artists and stuff like that, just sort of recognizing what they think is good and stuff like that. I always remember Mr. McCartney saying that when they released Revolver, at one point he listened to the playback of the whole album, and he was in such a funk one day because he heard it back, and it all sounded out of tune to him.
Oh boy.
And he had to be, I guess, somebody, or he had to be convinced that it sounded good.
And George Martin couldn't just say, it's okay.
I'm sure they did, and I'm sure he recognized it, but I just, the genius of Mr. McCartney's brain, after playing on one of the most seminal albums of the 60s, and so he's listening to songs like Here, There, and Everywhere and stuff like that. There's these beautiful things, and something in his brain just...
Well,
this all sounds out of tune.
It's not crazy because, you know, as we all can do, we get on the YouTube rabbit hole about tunings, about concert pitch, 440, it should be 442.
Oh, it's crazy.
And the Germans took it and stuck it to 440 to create dissonance in the human psyche. I mean, when you get into it, I always, and again, I'm not a virtuoso, but I think I'm pretty good at hearing out of tune stuff because I am redonkulous when I'm playing my guitar. Because no matter what, I know that the intonation's not perfect on my guitar, but it kills me to play things here and then down here open chords. Even when a guitar is in perfect tune, I still, sometimes it has to be detuned slightly to sound better. I think John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, that guy's a genius player. But he does a video about you can't tune your guitar to the harmonic, perfection because it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, and you lose all your harmonics and stuff like that after you sort of, stuff like that. I just find it interesting about McCartney specifically because to me, he's almost, especially in his Beatle days, he was almost a pitch perfect singer. So you could hear those harmonies and stuff like that. I mean, he's hitting everything like dead on. And for his ears or something about his ears and his brain, listening to the playback one day and just saying, this does not sound right to my head. It's just incredible to me. It's just something.
Well, I think the thing is that we've all doubted ourselves and we've all said at some point, am I crazy? Like, am I the only person that can hear this?
Yeah.
When it might be because you've actually trained yourself to think there's something wrong. And then when people say you're the greatest of all the time to you, and you think there's something wrong, you're thinking, I see something nobody else does.
Yeah, just a very interesting comment for him to make.
So it'd be interesting if he was right, and only because he can hear it in the way he hears it. But if you believe that everybody else in the world will believe that it's perfect and in tune, can you let it go?
Again, another good question. I'm glad you didn't have to answer it, and you didn't have to. He obviously had nothing to worry about. So,
do you have moments of yourself thinking that this is like way out of tune, and having to play it back for people? And
tuning is a funny thing. Yeah, that's why I have to. That's one of the things why I have to play back my music on different speakers. Because what sounds good to me in my headphones or what sounds in tune to me in my headphones sometimes comes at me. Sometimes I'm mixing a lot of different notes together and in the headphones it comes through, but sometimes a note will sort of, what I call passing notes, notes that are going, moving into another chord, sometimes stick out too much and really make the chord sound dissonant in a bad way to my I'm always listening and re-listening, and even to this day what I think is in tune somewhere when I'm listening to it in the headphones will lo and behold magically when I put it on speakers something will come out that didn't come out in the headphones. So you constantly
that used to kill me.
Oh yeah,
you play your mixes on different sets of speakers and it would just sound completely different. You're thinking, what am I doing wrong? Where is a neutral, uncolored speaker that I can hear my stuff on?
It can be a mind fuck. Sorry, but it can be a real mind, and it can be a very. It can upset me because you don't know where the balance is and stuff like that. And sometimes, so I've learned now to just say, okay, I got to put that away and I got to get fresh ears tomorrow. And I have to think about it more. And usually that rest period, once I've thought about what I should be doing to get it to sort of have more of a balance, listening to on both systems. So by the next day, I've usually resolved it in my head, and fresh ears always help. But yeah,
that's the nice thing about age and experiences. You know what to expect now. Like, you know your system well enough. You know you don't have to worry about now weird transients or reflections and stuff. The other thing is that I know you augment a lot of your stuff with samples, and so you don't worry about tuning at all. But it's always I always say the guitar, the bass, there's such manipulative instruments. That's where you articulate your stuff with the augmented tracks.
Yeah, a good combination. And actually, I just finished a song off that you heard, that Cerulean Emily song, and that's me playing the Martin acoustic guitar. And what a difference it is. I think there's a couple of samples going on in the background, but I think it's a good balance of me doing my thing and those samples sort of playing off it. It's...
See, now that's that part. Down. Lamb, like the nice glissando.
Yeah.
I would have a hard time not trying to throw other notes in there. Like it's beautiful that you let it slide, but I know part of that is that you don't fashion yourself as a, not that I do either, but you were good at letting things.
Well, interesting. There's a lot more of movement in the guitar that I edited out because I think the older I get, the more it's becoming apparent. The simpler the stuff is, the better. Having 28 things going on in the background and stuff like that, it can be a dicey thing. So just a simple melody is revoltingly an easy trope for a pop song, without getting all whoopie-doobie. I always find when I was younger, trying to show off, even when I was recording, having all these crazy bass parts and comping all these crazy bass parts together. So you would have maybe a little movement on bar one, and the next track you'd have a little movement on bar two, but you comp them all together and you got all this crazy bass stuff. Well, that's just a comp, and you're trying to almost make it sound better than what it should be, or following what the song should say. Hey, you're trying to show off in some way, so musically trying to show off.
Inevitably, you listen back and you go, it's too much. Just do those two cool things and let it hang.
Yeah. Let it breathe. Let it breathe.
Yeah, I got a song, it's called Let It Breathe. If I myself.
Okay.
Well, that's quite a lot. See, the computer shutting down is saying maybe that's a good first half there, boys. A lot of stuff there in creativity. I'm always amazed by where it comes from, where it goes to sometimes. Where the hell did that creativity go? But I'm sure a lot of people out there can appreciate a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. So we're going to get on to the hidden bonus tracks of the Alien, the Rabbit Monkey, and wrap it up.
That'll be good.
Half hour.
That'll be good.
If only you only my only, then please tell me good. Please tell me. You should be so lucky.
In your jeans, you're giving me the middle finger. I'll be a number one. As if I would.
Just enough to keep our heads above the water. Just
That's enough.
Foods.
Okay.
Did you grow up and see on CBS on Saturdays Kukla, Fran, and Ollie?
The film festival.
Yeah, where they showed all those
The old lady
European-
with the two puppets.
Yeah, the old lady with two puppets. So you saw that, eh?
Yeah.
Kukla, Fran, and Ollie.
Yeah.
And you remember Captain Kangaroo with
That was my favorite TV show in the morning, Captain Kangaroo.
with the ping pong balls and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Can we have ping pong balls?
Rusty the Draft. Rusty the Draft. You indeed.
And
Oh, sorry, that was the gentle, Friendly Giant.
Friendly
He was
Giant.
another favorite. I love
I'll
that
call
song.
Rusty and who was the other guy? Jerome.
Jerome the Giraffe.
Jerome.
Yeah, who? Oh, it was Mr. Moose on Captain Kangaroo.
Right.
Who's Mr. Moose.
And then there
Okay.
was- but wait, there was Mr. Dress Up.
Yeah, you're getting out of it for
What
me
about
now.
Casey and Finnegan?
I thought they were.
Did you like Finnegan's last album?
So,
You know the dog, the mute.
one thing we didn't talk about last half hour is where we are right now. It is May 23rd, I believe, 2020, and we're slowly coming out of the coronavirus, but
Getting ready for the second wave.
yeah, that's what it seems like. It seems like we're going to have another big wave coming. At least that's what the proletariat tells us. So, who knows? We'll just do what we can. I mean, the lockdown's still on, but hopefully we're coming out of it. And summer rolls on, though. It's been a beautiful few days, and it looks like summer's here finally. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So summer's here finally, so let's wrap up springtime with the last part of the Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey. Back in the day, what we would do with CDs, you would have your 10 to 12 songs picked out, and then whatever space was left on the disc, you would kind of butt up a few other little audio nuggets to the very end of it, so you'd have a whole lot of space. So for expediency's sake, what we've done is we've basically eliminated the space, and we're going to listen to the hidden bonus tracks now. And
Yeah, there was a big space, I remember. I remember, as I said last podcast that we did, that for better or for worse, that people would listen to the album, that this be the spot where there'd be 23 minutes of silence, and they would have fallen asleep or had already fallen asleep after listening to the first song as the rest of the album went on. And so there was 23 minutes of silence, and then all of a sudden the bonus tracks would kick in, which would shock the crap out of the people. I heard.
for you younger viewers, CDs would hold 650 megabytes worth of information, which was about 74 minutes when you translate it to 44.1 kilohertz sampling rate for CD.
Was.
And so, as you can see here, the album itself ran about 48 minutes or so. And so what you would do is 48 from 72, and then you would just butt up this stuff. So we're going to eliminate the 20 minutes or so here. And take a listen to the hidden bonus track. Should we just hit a go and see what happens? I'm not even sure entirely what's all here.
I'm not sure entirely as well, so go
That's the
for
way
it.
to do it. Okay, here we go. I guess I didn't have to say all this.
Janet's breakdown. Sandra's depressed. Once like her mother, the other's daddy's girl. Who's got the boyfriend? Which sister stays put? 'Cause daddy keeps his darling locked to his lemon tree. Just you wait till your father gets home. Don't you know that your father knows where? Letters of love should be waiting. Will she be tempted?
Huh? What?
We'll just let it roll.
Wow, there's a bit of silence. How many tracks of silence?
In my science class, I dissect the teacher's pet. I'm partial to formaldehyde. I like to pull the wings of butterflies. Astronomy doesn't mean a thing to me. 1 and 1 sometimes makes 3. I've got a twisted brain. Centrifuge. So long, farewell. I don't know a better way to say I wanna thank you, love, 'cause you're the best one that I ever had. I don't know a better way to say I wanna thank you, girl, 'cause you're the best one. Best one.
Is there any more? Okay, I gotta say, it's so like me. You talk about shivs and stuff like that. I probably.
The alien, the rabbit, and
Oh my god.
Like a cocktail, sir, or a picture of your brother in a dress. Jolly good.
This is supposed to be the African Queen, isn't it? Spartacus.
Actually, I don't know about that, Brooklyn. When I first wrote my book about the Americas, I thought they were very creepy.
And there you have it.
How long was that we just listened to? Was that about 4 minutes?
Yeah, probably. How come they line up the worst jazz solo
This
of all
video is
time
for-
right after
So, I haven't heard that in 25 or 30 years, and I just we've just spent the last weeks listening to the whole album, and you know, when you listen to things in context and stuff like that, that 4 minutes that we just listened to, by far is my most favorite 4 minutes
Really?
of the album. And it's incredible to me that none of those songs appeared on the album proper. I enjoyed listening to that. I enjoyed that. To me, sounds like a better.
I just made
Alien
a
rather
couple
than-
of notes and we just go through them if that's okay.
Sure.
All right, so the first one,
It was called The Lemon Tree.
The Lemon Tree, right, okay, that's why I wanted to get the title out there. Who was the female voice in there? Just you
That was
wait till your father gets home.
It was Andrea.
Andrea Karam?
Yeah.
Karam?
Yeah.
And she's with the Fun Guys, right, or something like Andrea and
Yeah.
the Fun Guys?
Yeah, and I think I can hear it sounds more of a traditional type of song, pop song, but I think it works well, and she sounds great, and I think the lyrics are fantastic. I remember it was something about some pointed dig at my father. I think I trying to make the line "family matters," and
Well, the whole point of this was he keeps his daughter locked to a lemon tree.
yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So I just like the phrase lemon tree, and it just sort of was abstract enough for me.
And so you attach a girl locked up to it.
Just something.
It's not smell the glove, but she's locked to a tree.
Yeah, I like the line. It sounded sinister to me, and there's something very sinister about was about my father. So yeah, so I tried to make it as sinister as I could. And
Yeah.
stuff like
Well, I don't doubt that either consciously or subconsciously that played a heavy factor in a lot of your songs. It's always sounded with a lot of cynicism.
Sure,
love
listening back
and
to it now,
cynicism.
yeah, for sure I listen to these absolutely. But I enjoyed the tune in itself, and it's more of me not screwing around with my voice as well. I can hear it was just sort of me singing. Yeah, and she sounds like $1,000,000 too. So
It's interesting. There's a few spots in this album where people would take not your traditional background vocal angle to things. Like I think a Sink or Swim, this one, where she's more sounding like an actor there,
Yes, well, I think the line that she sings, if we were to play it again, is just you wait till your father gets home. So she was being the stern mother.
Was your mother that way?
I remember my mum a few times pulling that card out. Just you wait till your father gets home. But I mean, the joke now is he never did come home. So
Well, that's what I'm saying
what
is
kind
that-
of lethal threat was it?
Yeah, but this is back when as far as you can concern yourself with, like, the family unit was pretty good and your mom was defending your dad. And
First 10 years was good. Yeah.
yeah, okay, so that was like anybody's childhood of, my mom never gave me that because my mom was the one. My dad would say, when your mom gets home, you're in trouble. And then he'd go sleep.
Yeah, but it was a good threat. Like, there's no doubt you didn't want
Yeah.
the dad at that time to get home.
And then I'm just thinking, so she's telling the girl who's locked to the lemon tree.
Can't really remember what. I wish I had the lyrics up right now. I could read them and stuff like that.
You'll see in the playback. There wasn't lyrics in this. As much as we like to throw lyrics to everything, so you're gonna have to kind of decipher that yourself.
Yeah.
Want we move along here?
Sure.
Then we
Sorry.
hit a bunch of backwards stuff at the end of that one, which obligatory backwards stuff. I don't think we have to explain backwards stuff.
Right, and I was saying to
cool for
Steve,
us.
my favorite part of doing songs are the endings. It's usually when somebody says "shut up," but generally, I love the sound of songs falling apart and playing off the melody that you just.
And maybe all the weird, funny musical
Yeah, for
jives
sure.
you think of, you go, I can do them at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. You can put all sorts of little stuff on it or hide stuff. Or
The interesting thing about a lot of your songs, well, not really, because a lot of your songs, I guess, are standard lengths, but the ones in the bonus tracks and all, they seem to be little shorter motifs of things that could have been worked out longer. But I'm wondering, just personally, I kind of like that. I'm Mr. ADD. I like a song that's 2 minutes.
No, that's why I think I like the listen to it now. I love what we just listened to. That's my favorite part of the album, and I like that. I think I should have had more of it. I shouldn't have completed the songs. I should have just sort of made these little motifs and just sort of played off them and got the hell out and went on to the next one and just sort of really lined them. I can hear that in the end. That's what the joy is about hearing it. It's not me trying to do songs proper. I mean, a song that we heard earlier on, like Suki and stuff like that. I mean, to me, that's trying to sound too perfect. We were talking about the word perfect. It's just too much me trying to be soulful. Too much me trying to. I don't know what the hell. I like the sort of. There's a lot of sound effects that are at the end that we just listened to. A lot of using A's, so a lot of stupid phrases. But I'm like that. I love the absurd sort of non sequiturs and stuff like that.
I do. I think it'd be really neat to. Almost like commission you to do, an hour, but I don't want to hear anything more than 2 minutes.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
guess that's why people write musicals. They want to try different stuff. Like a musical can bring a musical motif in for 1 minute, and it's over, and then it comes back again later in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't understand why albums weren't more that way. Like even bands I played in, like watched that Love video the other day, and when we hit that third verse or something, I was like, really? Really? You got to keep going with this? I like it. And again, I could apply that same rule to 99.9% of the rock bands in the last 30, 40 years, 50 years. Even sometimes the Beatles, well, no, I pretty well like all their stuff. But there are parts where you go, really, another verse? Seriously? Like, so yes, there are certainly appealing parts of this. But by the same token, as a listener to this record, I'm glad you didn't change it. But therein lies another big question. Do you like Sgt. Pepper because you're used to hearing everything the way it is, or because it's just perfect the way it is? You know what I'm saying?
It was never perfect to me. It was never my favorite Beatles album. I always loved listening to it, and I always loved listening to it on headphones downstairs on my father's amazing sound system. But it was never my favorite album and stuff like that. But however, this sort of stuff in between, and as I always said, McCartney's Ram album had all that stuff that we just heard, just sort of stuff falling apart, and you can hear the studio and just starting up stuff. And McCartney was really good at that on a couple of his albums, because he was sort of play little bits on one album, just like a 20-second thing on an out or something like that, and then all of a sudden in the next album you hear the song proper. Like he puts those little musical, he plays with it and stuff like that. Yeah, so I love all that stuff. Sorry.
No, that's okay. After that little backwards part, then we had a bunch of horror movie sound effects and stuff, because obviously that was leading into.
Right. So it's a song called "Creepy Science," and for me. It was a wonderful song. So it was always supposed to be what we just talked about. It was supposed to be sort of like a Broadway monster song. So there's the line, "Aren't you so creepy?" I could see like a bunch. When I grew up, the Muppets had specials in the 70s where they had big monsters and stuff like that. And I could see them on stage, "You're so creepy." And it was more, the song that I wrote was more of a traditional pop song, and you can really hear that in the chorus.
Pop song?
Well, the chorus, "I'm not like those other guys.
Okay, yeah.
My gyroscope doesn't jive in my lab. I expect." So it has some sort of traditional sort of little pop changes in it, and I purposely wrote that stuff. But the lyric, in the chorus is sort of something that you can put on. "I'm not like those other guys. My gyroscope doesn't jive. In my lab, I experiment, I create, and I invent. It's where the ludicrous collide." And so that was just sort of my, what do they call that? You could put it on my business card, basically. That's
your mission statement.
My mission statement. That's sort of why. That's sort of how I consider it. I've always never considered myself.
So you aren't writing these things about other people. You're writing. It's subconsciously, maybe even about yourself. This is exactly.
Well, it was sort of creepy. I think that was always the idea. Creepy science. I always remember my science class, and I love the lyrics. I love in this song. In my science class, I dissect the teacher's pet. I'm partial to
I love that.
Formaldehyde. I like to pull the wings off butterflies. You're so creepy.
Yeah.
So I loved all that stuff. So I can hear such great joy sort of in the production. There's a gentleman named Al Bragg that sang. He's the brilliant. He played on. He played with the Radio Kings. He was the lap steel guitar player. Pedal steel player. Insane player. Like just a ridiculous musician. But he did the low, "You're so creepy."
I didn't know it was
Al. So that was Al. And then it had Mike Riley playing banjo in the chorus. And I can hear all sort of sound effects. But I think the song sounds very apropos. To have all that craziness, especially when the song fades out. There's all that crazy Ace. Ace is a guitar player, but he's from Britain, and we used to phone him up. He was living in Britain, and like we would die, like we would be I was in tears always because he would always do these great. He could do a great Prince Charles and stuff
Monty
like that.
Python's
Oh, he was
good, yeah.
so Monty Python, and we just asked him to like read manuals from his mixer or his like one of his kitchen appliances, and just having him read that over the phone. Like we'd be recording it, and it was just made me. I was crying. Like anytime he spoke, it was just. He was a great guitar player, great guy. But for me, yeah. So just having him on the end, yeah, it was. It's. I love Creepy Science, and that was one of the songs I did after this album was done, and I sang it live at Zaphod Beeblebrox on my acoustic guitar, and I always remember doing that song because it just sounded so good. The essence of the song, it's such a special song if you take away everything and just have an acoustic guitar and my voice. The lyrics, the melody, it just, as a pop song to me, even the You're So Creepy, it moves up a half a tone. So like everything's sort of in C, and then the You're So Creepies are just sort of like it just moves up like a semitone. Yeah, I can hear my sort of
modulation again too. Yours not
yeah. And then it goes into the G, but then it hits those minor chords that go into the A flat. So it's to me, it's just sort of like I always knew like sort of writing pop songs is always fun and stuff like that. I always feel like sometimes I cheat my way out by just sort of doing crazier stuff with more chords and stuff like that. But there's something to be said about using a traditional template and put your craziness on top of it. And that's why I enjoy it so much.
I agree that this one could be like a table setter for a whole stage play, because I think reasons that, we were attracted to each other, personality-wise in the first place, our love of horror camp.
Absolutely.
Campy horror, the monsters, all this stuff. Our love of space and planes and all. So this is kind of a culmination of all this, the Creepy Science stuff. And for me, one of the highlights in it is a woman who is so involved in all of this, but you never hear but her voice. You're the creepiest.
Right, that was John's girlfriend, Elizabeth. Great lady. I always remember she was so nice. But she had a wicked voice, and she used it. She was the voice on the radio. She did the commercials for Doers Audio.
Dumb.
Yeah. She had that super smoky
Bedroom voice.
bedroom sexy. Just a million. You would drop dead listening to her voice and stuff like that. And that's her on there. You're the creepiest.
Right, and it sounds to me like the epitome of the good-looking girl in high school looking at, someone like you or me like, pass. That's exactly it, right? You want to have the best voice saying, no thanks. Anyways, and I also noticed in there, I wanted to throw this out, that you have the kazoo chorus.
Right, so I think I wrote that. So that was something that I'd go into my own little studio, and I always had a collection of little toys that either little ratchets or cheap things that made sounds and stuff like that. And the kazoo was just like it's like playing the ukulele on something.
It fits in the song so well.
Yeah.
I think they would make a patch for it on the keyboard. You would have to play it.
It did fit. I always remember it was sort of hard to record it properly, or I don't know. But yeah, it was. So I could imagine the monsters with their kazoos, sort of all sort of dancing like showgirls on the stage. You're so creepy. I did a kazoo solo on the album. Like, when do you get to do kazoo solos? That's one of the great joys.
That's good. Now, of course, the song, like any good song, just disintegrates into sound effects and weird shit.
I love that, though.
And then we hit the little electric piano.
Right. I totally forgot about that song. And I thought after Creepy Science, this thing was over. But that was some serendipity. I was very happy to hear it. You're right. It's me trying to be. It sounds like me trying to have a bit of McCartney.
It to me is the closest thing to like an homage to the end of the album. Is it called Thank You?
It's called Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, goodbye. Thank you. The end, if you will.
I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my vocals, which can't be said for a lot of the album. I really enjoyed my vocals. I enjoyed the fact that when the drums came in at the end, I moved up a tone on.
Yeah, you modulated at the end.
I
There. It was
modulated
cool.
it up and stuff like that.
And that was just after the backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I thought I did a good little vocal, and it seemed very short enough and stuff like that. I enjoyed it so much that I think I'm going to go home this week and put a little video that you can add to this. I'll put on, but it's just something that I totally forgot about, and it's something that I'd like to just
So
sort of.
good.
I would just like to put some lyrics to it and just put a few images.
That was one that when we were listening back, and just from my own personal opinion, that was one I would have liked to heard on the album proper. I just, not because it's so McCartney-esque, but it's like. You can't insult somebody by saying, "Oh, that sounds like something Paul McCartney would write."
Probably a good way to get people more interested in the album.
I just think it should get heard more.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I think I'm going to do a video for it. Again, the irony of listening to this whole album is that I'm completely head over heels over the bonus tracks that nobody really ever heard. It's my favorite part of the album, bar none.
And I did want to mention, because again, I love that song. It was a wonderful way to end it. Goodbye, thank you, all that stuff. But I did want to mention, because Byron and I have been talking for weeks about these other players that really made this album the colorful masterpiece that it is. And I wonder where the drummer, as we see here, it says, Robert Bangs, all drums. That says enough right there. So I was looking up Bob Bangs, who also played in the band I was in, the Hooblers, and he made it so great. And Derek Jeffries, the guitar player in most of the album. I had a hard time finding them, but then I found them.
The real musicians.
The real musicians in the band.
The real deals.
They play in a band right now called the Vanier Playboys with Ball and Chain, Michael Ball and his wife. And so we're going to try to go out and see him sometime.
Oh, absolutely.
And I want to bring a little recorder and ask them just for their memories on doing the album. It'd be fun to see what they recollect from
absolutely.
it.
Well, they'd probably be going.
So that officially ends The Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey. What I call his Sgt. Pepper, his high water mark. And I always say that, and he goes, "Fuck you, it's not high water." I don't mean that. I just mean in effort, time,
Fuck you.
all that fucking stuff.
Well, if you do listen to this album, listen to it in reverse. I think you probably enjoy it
With
more.
one headphone on.
No, but listen to the end first, and then work your way backwards.
Oh, I see. Not the whole album in reverse.
I should have flipped the track.
Well, they could just turn the CD over. Anyway,
It's so
from here now, there's been a disintegration between John and Byron. Obviously, he and Tracy have long gone their own ways now. And to this day, I mean, Tracy ended up marrying somebody, and they have a family, and be interesting to say hi to her someday. Maybe she'll watch this when we're all passed away. Who knows? Nonetheless, this wraps up The Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey, and John has gone his own way. Byron has now moved back home to his own little studio, because by this point he has Pro Tools, he has all the samples and stuff he needs to forge ahead. And forge ahead he did. And the next album we're going to take a look at is one called Koi Paradisio. And I'll fashion some links up here because it has been released online in its entirety. Oh. So, do you want to give us any final thoughts on this album?
No, I was a great. Somebody gave me the keys to the chocolate factory, and I ate all the chocolate. So, for better or for worse, there's a lot that I enjoyed, especially the end, but there's a lot that I see that I didn't enjoy. But
Yeah.
I mean, that was just sort of the whole. I had a great time doing it, though. That was the most important thing. I always remember that. It was just like at the time of my life, absolutely.
Yeah, and again, I'm always kind of screwed up on the timeline of everything. Kirk's demise. When was that? Like, how far after this album was released? That was like
Kirk was that was about 10 years after this
Right.
album, stuff like that.
I'm just wondering about how long, and then because the one thing about Kirk's passing is you got to see everybody again, kind of Tracy and John, because Kirk brought everybody together. So it's kind of interesting to see in that interim what had happened, with everybody, where they had gone, what they had done. So how many years was it between this album and Corey Paradizio's release?
Well, I think I was starting to. Corey Paradisio was about 8 or 9 years later. So, but in that time, I was either working on my second album or doing a lot of work with Susie, or doing a lot of my own stuff with my Xbox. But the constant over those 9 years was that I was doing a lot of songs, but I was only getting them about 3/4 done and moving on to the next one. I was obviously going through this hard drive. I was obviously quite prolific, but yeah, I was just sort of not finishing off a lot of stuff during that time.
I remember a time back when we were working together, and Byron would be working on 2 or 3 songs in the studio. He'd be tinkering around with a couple more that he's writing, and I would ask him, like, what are you doing, dude? I said, like, let's just get this one song done, and then you can work on that one. Not like I'm telling him what to do, but I'm just trying to move along the work. And I would say, like, you're writing 4 or 5 songs all at once. What are you doing? And he told me one day, dude, these are my salad days. I could wake up tomorrow and never write another song, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to write as many as I can when they hit me. So you used to just pile up songs.
I did, but I think for better or for worse, after The Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey, and sort of that time. So the the M-Box, or Pro Tools, came out in 2002. So I really moved into that time. I started doing a lot of stuff on the computer. So I had sort of moved from tape over into the computer and recording on the computer and stuff like that. So the computer for somebody like me is the best of worlds, and it's the worst of worlds. It's the best of worlds because you can do anything you want musically on a computer. You can take your audio and you can stretch it, turn it upside down, and do everything. The worst thing about a computer is that you can do anything you want to it and stretch it and turn it upside down. I am the type, or I still am, I probably always will be, the type of personality that loves to take songs and do everything I can with it, just to experiment and go down every road I can to see, put different parts against different things. And so, yeah, I think there's a bit of ADT in me. And so a lot of time spent that I wouldn't have otherwise if I was in an analog, where I would have to actually musically put stuff down, maybe move some stuff over and stuff like that. But when you have, it's like the recording process prior to having a computer was very linear. It was, you'd start at one point and you get to the end. But the computer, it's like, not only is there an XY axis, but there's a Z axis now. And it makes everything 3D. And you can turn stuff around and stuff like that. And so for a person like me, again, it's like giving me keys to the chocolate factory. Now I can turn music around and do anything I want with it.
Oh, and add a 4th dimension at time, which is video.
Right. Well, this is what it's
slowing it down even more.
Right. So this is what it can be, and there are these enormous rabbit holes, and so I think that those 9 years where I was just sort of producing a lot of stuff but not finishing a lot of stuff off, I was really hitting the rabbit holes on every musical idea I had, trying different ways, going down different roads. Sometimes I would spend months going down one road only to find it being a dead end. I couldn't get out of the road musically, sort of in my head, like I couldn't. I'd get too married to
You
things.
just scrap the whole thing as opposed to
Sometimes I'd
reworking it.
move on to the next thing. And so those are usually why things just didn't get finished up. So it's the sort of the thing that I'd get too married to things that I'd recorded, to things I sung. had other people sing, and it was hard to sort of let go. This is why when I'm now sort of going back over all these hard drives that I sort of spent 9 years doing and stuff like that, it's a lot easier now because I don't remember anything I did other than what I hear, and I just say, okay, well, that's got to go, or keep, or like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, or oh my God, I can't believe I did that. What the hell are you doing? But yeah, a computer's been my greatest joy ever, and it's been my greatest curse ever musically.
And that brings me back to my comment about when you told me that these are my salad days. I'm going to do everything I can now. I'll sort it out later. And now it's funny to be able to, not only the end roll, but farther down the road going, holy shit, because you haven't dried up.
No, and I guess I'm sorting out a lot of stuff now. But yeah, so like.
Do you feel ever that the tank is empty or getting close to empty?
No, it's almost scary how fun it is when so much is at your disposal and so many tools are just right in front of you. And like the last song I did, there was so much already recorded, and I just sort of had to add a few more colors to it for my ears. that's what somebody thinks probably. Flush the toilet. Yeah. So I'm just sort of trying to clean up a lot of stuff. Yeah. So there's times that I just say, okay, stop. I don't have to keep going back. I should write a whole pile of new stuff right now because it'd be fun to do it and really get involved. But I get into that thing was right now it's just that I've done so much stuff the last 15 years that I don't want stuff to be left. And there just seems to be so many ideas I can't remember doing that I've done. Well, that's what I'm doing now.
Well, I'll pose something to you for next week, just because we're finished with this album now. Would you ever consider, maybe next week we'll throw you up here and maybe have you do a couple of songs from this? If you want to do Creepy Science, if you want to do it, just give us a couple, because I don't know if there's ever going to be a version anywhere visually of you playing any of your songs anywhere. Maybe strip them right down just to you and acoustic guitar.
No, absolutely. One day, I will, once I get my head around it. There is a video version, and I was going to ask you, actually, since we're talking about it. There is a video. So there is a video of me doing something at some TV studio for this album. The song Sink or Swim, and it was outlandish.
I got a dog.
Yay! And it was John being.
We're waving at people outside. Hey!
Do they see us?
No, I don't think so.
They're mocking us relentlessly.
You can hear my dog barking. That's someone's arrived. Anyway,
I did this thing at CJOH Studios, and John being John, and I haven't seen it, so it must look pretty cool. But John went to Steve's Music and got a bank of Marshall amps stacks, so the whole background looks like a bank of Marshall stacks. Of course, the song that I did was Sink or Swim, so I think that was.
I remember that joke. Yeah.
I don't know if it's sustained the 2 minutes that it took to do the song.
It was worth the effort, the joke.
It was worth. It's so drawn though. So, but it must look wonderful now. When you can put the depravity of it all and stuff like that. So.
Well, there was always some kind of inside joke rolling around with you and John during that time. There is always in studios all over the world, I'm sure, inside jokes.
Absolutely, any group of people have their like that.
So I'm going to try to encourage Byron to perform a song or two for us maybe in the next couple of weeks. But no matter what, next week, episode 21, we start with Coy.
Very easy. Yeah. I did this song. I just got to learn a couple of them.
Okay.
I'm going to do a video with Byron.
Consider playing. Well, you know what? The new album. We're going to do a bunch of videos for it. There's a whole thing to look forward to. Anyway, see you next week.
Goodbye.